How is it going, YouTube? Most Sports Network back again today with a spreadsheet on Google Sheets. Um, I know that's kind of weird, something you're not super used to, um, and that is because we are doing a breakdown of my first Bracketology for March Madness. We're going to do these probably weekly up until Selection Sunday, and we're just going to take a look at who I have in the tournament. I have all the seedings here. We're going to run down real quick, and then I'm going to show you guys my bracket. I don't really cross-analyze these with the brackets of the experts, so if things look really off, that's why. This is strictly my opinion from what I've seen so far this season, because I am a huge college hoops fan overall. So let's dive right into it. Our one seed shouldn't really be surprising to anyone. The only one that I think you can really refute at the moment is Ohio State, because some of their losses they've had really rough on the Northwestern. But otherwise, I think Gonzaga, Baylor, Michigan, all very solid one seeds. Combined, they've only lost one game. Ohio State has 4 losses, but they have a very strong resume as well. I think that's a solid top 4. The twos, Houston probably would be a 1 seed over Ohio State in my book if they didn't drop that one to ECU. I'll give them a mulligan, but 2 losses I think from Houston is enough to drop them to the 2 seed. And then the other teams you have Villanova, Virginia, and Illinois. Illinois has slightly more losses, but I think the Big Ten is the best conference in college basketball, therefore they're deserving of that 2. The threes, we have USC, Alabama, Creighton, and Florida State. Creighton just won the Big East regular season title, mainly because Villanova lost opportunities to play in a lot of those games. So good for Creighton. I think that earns up the 3 line. Florida State beating Virginia is going to help them out a lot. They've been on quite a tear. The only weird loss, in my opinion, is the Georgia Tech one. Georgia Tech's not horrible. They're like on the bubble right now. And then Bama and USC leading their respective conferences. The 4 line, this is where we start to drop off just a little bit. Texas and Oklahoma have both played some good basketball, but they're going through the meat grinder of the Big 12, and all these teams, your Texases, your Oklahomas, your West Virginias, your Texas Techs of the world, all of them are playing each other, beating each other up, and that's going to hurt them a little bit in the long run. And then the final 4 I have is Virginia Tech. Some strange losses this year, particularly the Penn State's one I'm thinking of, but they do have wins over Virginia, which is a very huge one. I think that justifies putting Virginia Tech, with only 4 losses on the season, is still up at the 4 line. The fives, I know Oregon plays in the Pac-12, not the strongest conference, only lost 4 games. I think they are justified as a 5 seed, especially from what they've done in the past. I like Oregon up here. Arkansas has done an excellent job in the SEC so far, navigating it. I know a lot of people aren't super high on them. That's okay. I'm okay keeping Arkansas at the 5 line. And then West Virginia and Texas Tech are along here too. Have just been losing games because they're in a really tough Big 12. The sixes, this is before Missouri's loss last night. So that they're here for now in this week of the bracket. But any further slipping, and I could see them dropping to like the 8 or 9 line. We have Tennessee here. UCLA's fallen off just a little bit, but they're still looking well. And Wisconsin almost beat Michigan. They blew it, and that would have been huge for them. That could put them around like the 4 or 5 line, but they're going to be a 6 for now. The sevens, Louisville, Clemson, they're 2 quality ACC teams. I think both of these teams could be a lot lower, but they just haven't lost that many games, and I don't want to punish them for winning games despite playing in a conference that's historically strong and is just a little weak this year. I think 7 is pretty fair for a year. In a normal ACC, both these teams would be around like the 5 line. Then we have Kansas, who has been more or less kind of disappointing. I think you could switch like Kansas and Missouri here. Could be one I'd potentially think of doing on my book. But Kansas has been a bit of a letdown this year. I'm going to have about the 7 line, along with Big 12 counterpart Oklahoma State Cade Cunningham is so great. I think that alone keeps them at the 7 line with some of their quality wins they've racked up. We get to the 8s. I think Purdue is a riser. They've looked really good. They beat Michigan State, so that's a quality win they added to their resume. They beat Ohio State twice. I like Purdue. They're getting better. Some really quality freshmen on this team who are going to be really good soon. Then we have St. John's, went on a crazy tear, team of the month a couple months ago, or last month, not a couple months. College basketball season isn't that long. And then you have Syracuse and Colorado State, both with 6 losses of their own. But I think these are two teams. Syracuse, Jim Boeheim, he's always going to throw out a quality team year after year. And Colorado, kind of like Oregon, I'm not going to punish them for playing in the Big 12. I think Big 12, or the Pac-12, rather. They're in the Big 12 a long time ago. The Pac-12, rather, I think is better than a lot of people think. The 9s, Minnesota, another riser, or faller, then riser. They're a really weird team. Can't really win games outside of Minnesota. We'll see if that keeps up. I think a 9 line's pretty good for them. They beat Michigan. They beat Ohio State. They beat the 2 ones in the Big Ten. So I think that's the 9, even with some weird losses, is okay for Minnesota. Seton Hall racked up quite a bit of losses, but I think they're like the third or fourth best team in the Big East. So can't really keep them out. North Carolina, I'm going to keep them in as of now, just because of I think they just have so much talent on that team at the end of the day, and they're still 12-7. That I think they should still be an NCAA tournament team. And then Xavier, only 4 losses, but have hardly played any games relative to a lot of teams. They lost some kind of weird ones. I'm like tempted to switch them with UConn because they did lose to UConn, but we're going to see how that one goes in a little bit. We still have a lot of season left to play. The 10 line, Rutgers, they're struggling, but I think in the Big Ten, like a 12-17, kind of like UNC, kind of like Seton Hall, they deserve to be around this line. They've really fallen off lately, though. Rutgers has been kind of disappointing. Then Florida, just lost to Georgia last night. Their stock is still falling. They had that pause, not playing any games, followed by some kind of poor play. So Florida's in a weird spot right now. They have had some decent wins to keep them afloat, but I have them at the 10 line. And we have Stanford. Oscar da Silva, I think's his name. Like best player in the Pac-12. He's going to be fun to see in March Madness. So I have Stanford here at number 10. And the 10 seed, a lot of people have them out of the tournament. I think they deserve to be in 13-8 as of now. Then Wichita State, again, hasn't had the chance to play that many games, but we know that Wichita State's going to be a quality team year in and year out. In the AAC, they're like the number 2 team in the conference right now, so I'll keep them in there. The 11 seed, I know this is pretty low for both of these teams, but I have Drake and Loyola Chicago here. For teams that have pretty much only been playing each other, I'm not going to give them too much slack. Like, yes, they did lose to like themselves, so that'll be a loss for each of them, which I don't really blame either of those teams for. But like Drake lost to Valpo. Valpo's not really any good. But then Loyola played some better teams earlier in the year. I think maybe even I think VCU might have been one of those losses, if I'm remembering things right. But losses are still losses, and when you play in the Valley without Wichita nowadays, I'm not going to give you that much room for error. I think the 11th seed's still fair for both these teams. And we have VCU leading the A10, and I have San Diego State leading the Mountain West. I feel kind of bad about this, but I only have one team from the Mountain West and the A10 in right now. I want to watch some of the major teams play in these upcoming weeks. And when some of those teams start to fade out, that's when I think some of those A10 and some of those Mountain West teams can sneak their way back in. But I just have the conference leaders in at the moment. Then the 12 seeds, I have Western Kentucky and Belmont are the 2 teams that are playing their way out of those like really crappy, like, oh God, like the 4-3-2-1 matchups where you're not going to win a lot of the time. So I have Western Kentucky and Belmont as those 2 teams. And then our play-in games, I have UConn and SMU, and then I have BYU and Memphis, so 2 AAC teams. in the mix right now. Both of these teams could fall out in favor of like an A10 and a Mountain West team as well. Then I think BYU is pretty safe, and UConn picked up a pretty good win the other night as well. So my last two teams in at the moment are SMU and Memphis. So we move on to the 13s, 14s, 15s, 16s. Nothing too interesting here to look at. Liberty is a team that a lot of people could argue should be higher, and Winthrop as well. I'm keeping them down at the 13 line. Winthrop just for playing in a poopy conference. And Liberty for sort of the same reason. The A-Sun is not very good. I don't think it's even as good as CUSA. So I have Liberty down here. Nothing else too interesting. The Bubble Watch, I don't know why this font is smaller. We got your 3 Mountain West teams right here. 2 A10 teams. I have Nevada down there as well as like a kind of a last-ditch thing. They can still play themselves in. They were in the tournament a few years with the Martin brothers. I think they could still be in here. And then your major conference teams. I have Indiana. I have Maryland. Maryland's like one of my first teams out. They've looked better as of late, but they just have too many losses. Georgia, big win against Florida. Ole Miss has been hanging in there in the SEC as well, so that's my bubble watch at the moment. So now what we've been really waiting for through this 11 minutes of rambling is the bracket unveiling. So here's my bracket right here. I have a nice Excel sheet. I'll post the link if you guys want to fill out this bracket, even though there'd be no point in that at the moment. But here's the bracket I have right now. I'm looking at some key matchups. Gonzaga is going to beat the crap out of whoever wins this play-in game. Purdue Xavier I think would be a fun one. I'd probably favor Purdue there if that were to happen. Texas Tech Western's really fun. Charles Bassey versus that Texas Tech team will be fun. I think Winthrop's getting kind of screwed having to play Iowa in this situation, but I just can't make it work. I think Wisconsin Drake would be fun. And then Clemson Florida is another interesting one in my eyes. Then you have 2 Texas teams playing here in the 215. The other side of this bracket, we have Baylor. They're going to win that, no problem. And I probably favor Minnesota over St. John's, but we'll see since they're not playing in the barn if that were to happen. West Virginia Belmont, I think, would be an interesting matchup. Missouri VCU, I think, could be pretty fun as well. VCU is a dangerous 11 seed, as always. I think that's exactly where they want to be. And then Louisville, Wichita State, I think is a fun one as well. So I like how this bracket's played out so far. Michigan, they're going to win their 16. The same with Ohio State over on the other side. Colorado, North Carolina, I think those 8-9 matchups are always so fun, and I love picking those out through my seeds. Oregon versus BYU or Memphis, I think that could be a fun matchup. Oklahoma Liberty would be a sneaky one. I think if this bracket was a real bracket, a lot of people would be picking Liberty as their big upset in this side of the bracket. Maybe even to go to the Sweet 16 because Oregon isn't a particularly strong 5 seed. I put Tennessee against Loyola Chicago again on purpose just because I think Tennessee wants that redemption against Loyola. So I think that's a really fun storyline. And if you're looking at the bracket, just trying to scan through it, I think you see another interesting revenge story there. And then as well, Oklahoma State, Stanford. I purposely set up Cade Cunningham and Oscar da Silva to play in that matchup. That's going to be really fun for the chance to likely play Villanova if this were to happen. And then finally in the final bracket, I think Ohio State shouldn't have a problem there. Syracuse-Seton Hall, I think, would be a really fun matchup. Those 8 and 9s, again, I just love talking about those. Arkansas with a chance to play either UConn or SMU. I think you give Arkansas and or Texas a chance to make a good run, especially if you like them over Ohio State, because Ohio State is a bit of a weaker one. I think both the 5 seeds in this division, whoever wins the second matchup, if they can get past their respective opponents, probably Texas in particular has a chance to finally make a run with, what's his face, Shaka Smart. Then you got UCLA, San Diego State. You got UCLA on upset watch on that one probably. Kansas, Rutgers. I think that's a really fun matchup in all honesty. Rutgers, their first trip in a long time. I don't know if they've ever made the NCAA tournament. It's definitely been a really long time since they have playing a blue blood Kansas. Then You know I had to do it to him. UMBC is leading their conference right now. I didn't have Vermont, and I'm leading UMBC right now. And if they get in, I want to set them up with Virginia, and that's going to be a talking point all week long as far as that one goes. So that is my bracket here, folks. So if you guys enjoyed it, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm still working on the next 2K video and the next NCAA football video to come out. But just wanted to get this out here while it's fresh. That's all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure you press that like button. If you really liked it, make sure you subscribe. That's all from me today. I've been Mo Sports Network. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.